This is a CBS News special report. The President's State of the Union address to a joint session of Congress. From Washington, here is Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. This is the sixth time President Bush is reporting to Congress and the American people on the State of the Union. But it is the first time he's appearing before a Congress controlled by the opposition party, the Democrats. And another first tonight, a woman is presiding over this joint session of the House and Senate, the new Speaker of the House, Democrat Nancy Pelosi of California. We're told the president will acknowledge this moment, this very special milestone in history. In just a few minutes, back there at the Capitol, she'll officially introduce the president. Mr. Bush will lay out his agenda for his final 2 years in the White House. He leaves office 104 weeks from today. The president is facing a tough audience tonight, a Congress opposed to his Iraq policy, an American public that says the country is heading in the wrong direction. Bob Schieffer is our chief Washington correspondent who has covered countless states of the union, if you will. And Bob, he is facing a very tough crowd, including members of his own party tonight.
Absolutely. This is a very different kind of audience for George Bush. For one thing, the majority now is held by the Democrats. This group assembled here tonight is very, very skeptical of the president's war policy. Tomorrow, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee will begin work on a resolution that disagrees with the president's policy to expand the war. That is going to pass with a considerable number of Republicans going along with that. So this is a very different kind of crowd that the president's addressing tonight. Mrs. Bush and Mrs. Cheney, of course.
And Jim Axelrod, who is our White House correspondent. Jim, can you preview briefly the speech? 50% foreign policy, 50% domestic.
That's right, Katie. The president is hoping, if not to switch the subject, at least to get some interest in what his aides are calling bold proposals when it comes to domestic issues, precisely in health care and energy. Health care, of course, he's hoping to, with a combination of tax hikes for some and tax cuts for others, make access to health insurance more widely available. And then this energy proposal you hear about is what's called 20 and 10, cutting gasoline consumption 20% in America over the next 10 years. As far as foreign policy goes, you won't hear him replowing the ground as far as the argument for Iraq, but you will hear language such as failure in Iraq would be grievous and far-reaching, Katie.
And as we have been watching, some members of the Supreme Court have just entered the chamber. This is a very auspicious occasion, and all the VIPs from Washington, of course, are in attendance. As we see, members of the president's cabinet now entering. Condoleezza Rice glad-handing with members of Congress. She's been on some massive world travels in recent weeks and months and is probably pretty exhausted from those trips.
This is one of the great ego walks in America.
The new Secretary of the Treasury, Hank Paulson, of course, behind her, and Robert Gates behind him.
Even though, Katie, as we were talking about what a skeptical audience it will be, the president will still get a great hand when he walks in. He'll get a standing ovation, then everybody will sit down, and then when he gets up there, he'll get another standing ovation.
And in fact, Nancy Pelosi told us earlier today, Bob, that the members were under strict instructions to be respectful to the president and to treat this speech very seriously indeed. I don't think there probably won't be a great deal of applause. In fact, the president's aides told us he was not looking for a lot of applause tonight, probably because he won't get them when it comes to his foreign policy section of the address. But still,
I thought that was one of the most interesting things we found out at the White House briefing that we attended today, Katie, was when the officials told us that I counted 4 times they said the president is not expecting a lot of applause during his foreign policy section of this speech.
Having said that, they are very excited about some domestic initiatives regarding energy consumption and health care in this country. Whether or not they'll get any traction, of course, remains to be seen. But congressional officials, Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid, who we spoke with earlier today as well, said they were looking for the White House to extend itself and say, we want to work with you on some of these very important issues. How genuine that sentiment is remains to be seen, and whether politics will win out, of course, is a big question mark.
I think they'll give a good listen to his proposals on energy, but so far there seems to be no interest whatsoever in what he is going to outline tonight on health care. Senator Reid, the Democratic leader in the Senate, said, frankly, he thought the proposal was ridiculous. But then he backed up and said, well, I'll wait till I hear the whole thing. But that does sound like there's going to have to be a pretty good selling job if the president's going to get anywhere with that.
Gloria Borger, the president has low expectations in terms of how his new way forward for Iraq will be received again tonight. But what do you think he can conceivably accomplish here?
Well, I think the big question, Katie, is whether his problems in Iraq are going to translate into domestic policy as well. He does have these domestic policy proposals you and Bob have been talking about. He wants to get something done in lots of these areas. He wants to balance the budget, for example. And the question is whether it's in everyone's self-interest, the Democrats who control the Congress and the president who's thinking of his legacy, to get something done here and to not let Iraq overlay everything. And that really remains to be seen. But tonight, he's going to devote half of his speech to domestic policy because he knows that that's the one area they might be able to find some areas of agreement on, whether it's immigration or balancing the budget or education.
And immigration is, in fact, an extremely important issue for this White House. And they really want to get something accomplished in this arena, don't they, Gloria?
Yeah, they really do. And the president is really more in agreement with lots of Democrats on immigration than he is with conservative Republicans in his own party. So it's very conceivable that this president will go looking for those Democrats and try and strike a deal in much the same way that Ronald Reagan did when he was president, went trolling for conservative Democrats. So watch for the president to sort of send a signal. I'm going to meet with you. I'm going to talk to you because this time around, I need you.
And in fact, Bob, he wants to get this done before the primary season starts in earnest because the White House does not want this to be an extremely divisive political issue as we move into the presidential campaign.
I think that's right. And I think of all these controversial issues, immigration may be the one where he can actually come together with his Congress and get something done because of just what Gloria just said. A lot of Democrats agree with the president's ideas about immigration, more so than some in his own party. But he'd really like to get this done.
As we watch this cocktail party atmosphere in the chamber, Jim Axelrod, how much pressure do you think the president is under? Because we described his demeanor earlier tonight as resolute yet resigned, and he seems to be or have an air of confidence despite his poll numbers. How do you see him at this juncture in his presidency?
Well, Katie, I keep thinking about the speech he made nearly 2 weeks ago when he outlined to the nation the new way forward in Iraq. What was most interesting about that was the next day, remember, he went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and he did several high-profile television interviews. You would have expected to seen some bounce. That's usually what happens when the president gives a major address. There's usually some temporary bounce, but at least some kind of bounce in his favor. None of that was seen. Katie?
All right, Jim Axelrod, thank you very much. There he is, the President of the United States, and he'll be announced.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States.
As the president makes his way down the aisle, Bob, this has turned into one of the most fascinating exercises in politics. A kiss is no longer just a kiss, as Joe Lieberman could tell us after he was bussed by the president following the 2005 State of the Union. That kiss came back to haunt him, as many Connecticut voters felt he was too close to the president in terms of his position on the Iraq War. But there are warm feelings towards this man, even though many people in the chamber disagree with him.
And let's also not forget, a lot of people want to get up there the aisle so they can be seen on television, Katie.
Oh, you're so cynical, Bob.
Oh, the interns, they'll send interns in to hold the seats close to the aisle, you know, at mid-afternoon. This is a very important thing. It's one of my favorite nights in Washington because here you see, you know, one kind of example of every kind of American that we have. They're all out there on the floor representing this great country that we have, and you realize when you see all of them together in one place at one time, what a big place it is, and what a huge country it is. And it's one of the few rituals that we really have in our democracy. But I always think it's a wonderful evening, and I just love to watch it.
It's interesting that the Constitution requires presidents to deliver an address to Congress, but Thomas Jefferson thought it was too kingly and resembled Parliament, British Parliament, too much, so he started to deliver them in written form, and that was done up until Woodrow Wilson revived this practice back in 1913. But ever since then, it's become, as you say, an annual ritual here in the nation's capital.
And now that we're in the television age, no president will ever turn down the opportunity to, get 3 standing ovations before he even gets up to the podium. He'll get up there, and everybody will sit down, and then they'll introduce him again, and he'll get another standing ovation. For the first time, you know, we're going to have a woman sitting behind him, too.
That's right, and Nancy Pelosi
here she is,
told us how meaningful this would be for her, as meaningful as when she was sworn in as the first woman Speaker of the House. The president expected to speak between 45 and 50 minutes tonight, with the Democratic response delivered by the junior senator from Virginia, James Webb.
How you doing? Thank you. There you go. Welcome, Mr. President. You going with me? I am. Okay, that's good.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and the distinct honor of presenting to you the President of the United States.
Go ahead. Thank you very much. And tonight I have the high privilege and distinct honor of my own as the first president to begin the State of the Union message with these words: Madam Speaker. In his day, the late Congressman Thomas D'Alessandro Jr. from Baltimore, Maryland, saw Presidents Roosevelt and Truman at this rostrum. But nothing could compare with the sight of his only daughter, Nancy, presiding tonight as Speaker of the House of Representatives. Congratulations, Madam Speaker. Congratulations. Two members of the House and Senate are not with us tonight, and we pray for the recovery and speedy return of Senator Tim Johnson and Congressman Charlie Norwood. Madam Speaker, Vice President Cheney, members of Congress, distinguished guests, and fellow citizens. The rite of custom brings us together at a defining hour when decisions are hard and courage is needed. We enter the year 2007 with large endeavors underway and others that are ours to begin. In all of this, much is asked of us. We must have the will to face difficult challenges and determined enemies, and the wisdom to face them together. Some in this chamber are new to the House and the Senate, and I congratulate the Democrat majority. Congress has changed, but not our responsibilities. Each of us is guided by our own convictions, and to these we must stay faithful. Yet we're all held to the same standards and called to serve the same good purposes, to extend this nation's prosperity, to spend the people's money wisely, to solve problems, not leave them to future generations, to guard America against all evil, and to keep faith with those we have sent forth to defend us. We're not the first to come here with a government divided and uncertainty in the air. Like many before us, we can work through our differences, and we can achieve big things for the American people. Our citizens don't much care which side of the aisle we sit on, as long as we're willing to cross that aisle when there's work to be done. Our job is to make life better for our fellow Americans and to help them build a future of hope and opportunity, and this is the business before us tonight. A future of hope and opportunity begins with a growing economy, and that is what we have. We're now in the 41st month of uninterrupted job growth, a recovery that has created 7.2 million new jobs so far. Unemployment is low. Inflation is low. Wages are rising. This economy is on the move, and our job is to keep it that way, not with more government, but with more enterprise. Next week, I'll deliver a full report on the state of our economy. Tonight, I want to discuss 3 economic reforms that deserve to be priorities for this Congress. First, we must balance the federal budget. We can do so without raising taxes. What we need is spending discipline in Washington, D.C. We set a goal of cutting the deficit in half by 2009 and met that goal 3 years ahead of schedule. Now let us take the next step. In the coming weeks, I will submit a budget that eliminates the federal deficit within the next 5 years. I ask you to make the same commitment. Together we can restrain the spending appetite of the federal government, and we can balance the federal budget. Next, there's the matter of earmarks. These special interest items are often slipped into bills at the last hour, when not even C-SPAN is watching. 2005 alone, the number of earmarks grew to over 13,000 and totaled nearly $18 billion. Even worse, over 90% of the earmarks never make it to the floor of the House and the Senate. They're dropped into committee reports that are not even part of the bill that arrives on my desk. You didn't vote them into law. I didn't sign them into law. Yet they are treated as if they have the force of law. The time has come to end this practice. So let us work together to reform the budget process, expose every earmark to the light of day and to a vote in Congress, and cut the number and cost of earmarks at least in half by the end of this session. And finally, to keep this economy strong, we must take on the challenge of entitlements. Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid are commitments of conscience, and so it is our duty to keep them permanently sound. Yet we're failing in that duty. And this failure will one day leave our children with three bad options: huge tax increases, huge deficits, or huge and immediate cuts in benefits. Everyone in this chamber knows this to be true, yet somehow we have not found it in ourselves to act. So let us work together and do it now. With enough good sense and goodwill, you and I can fix Medicare and Medicaid and save Social Security. Spreading opportunity and hope in America also requires public schools that give children the knowledge and character they need in life. 5 years ago, we rose above partisan differences to pass the No Child Left Behind Act, preserving local control, raising standards, and holding schools accountable for results. And because we acted, students are performing better in reading and math, and minority students are closing the achievement gap. Now the task is to build on this success without watering down standards, without taking control from local communities, and without backsliding and calling it reform. We can lift student achievement even higher by giving local leaders flexibility to turn around failing schools, and by giving families with children stuck in failing schools the right to choose someplace better. We must increase funds for students who struggle and make sure these children get the special help they need. And we can make sure our children are prepared for the jobs of the future and our country is more competitive by strengthening math and science skills. The No Child Left Behind Act has worked for America's children, and I ask Congress to reauthorize this good law. A future of hope and opportunity requires that all our citizens have affordable and available health care. When it comes to health care, government has an obligation to care for the elderly, the disabled, and poor children, and we will meet those responsibilities. For all other Americans, private health insurance is the best way to meet their needs. But many Americans cannot afford a health insurance policy. And so tonight I propose two new initiatives to help more Americans afford their own insurance. First, I propose a standard tax deduction for health insurance that will be like the standard tax deduction for dependents. Families with health insurance will pay no income on payroll tax or payroll taxes on $15,000 of their income. Single Americans with health insurance will pay no income or payroll taxes on $7,500 of their income. With this reform, more than 100 million men, women, and children who are now covered by employer-provided insurance will benefit from lower tax bills. At the same time, this reform will level the playing field for those who do not get health insurance through their job. For Americans who now purchase health insurance on their own, this proposal would mean a substantial tax savings. $4,500 for a family of four making $60,000 a year. And for the millions of other Americans who have no health insurance at all, This deduction would help put a basic private health insurance plan within their reach. Changing the tax code is a vital and necessary step to making health care affordable for more Americans. My second proposal is to help the states that are coming up with innovative ways to cover the uninsured. States that make basic private health insurance available to all their citizens should receive federal funds to help and provide this coverage to the poor and the sick. I've asked the Secretary of Health and Human Services to work with Congress to take existing federal funds and use them to create affordable choices grants. These grants would give our nation's governors more money and more flexibility to get private health insurance to those most in need. There are many other ways that Congress can help. We need to expand health savings accounts. We need to help small businesses through association health plans. We need to reduce costs and medical errors with better information technology. We will encourage price transparency, and to protect good doctors from junk lawsuits, we need to pass medical liability reform. In all we do, we must remember that the best healthcare decisions are not made by government and insurance companies, but by patients and their doctors. Extending hope and opportunity in our country requires an immigration system worthy of America, with laws that are fair and borders that are secure. When laws and borders are routinely violated, this harms the interests of our country. To secure our border, we're doubling the size of the Border Patrol and funding new infrastructure and technology. Yet even with all these steps, we cannot fully secure the border unless we take pressure off the border. And that requires a temporary worker program. We should establish a legal and orderly path for foreign workers to enter our country to work on a temporary basis. As a result, they won't have to try to sneak in. And that will leave border agents free to chase down drug smugglers and criminals and terrorists. We'll enforce our immigration laws at the work site and give employers the tools to verify the legal status of their workers, so there's no excuse left for violating the law. We need to uphold the great tradition of the melting pot that welcomes and assimilates new arrivals. We need to resolve the status of the illegal immigrants who are already in our country without animosity and without amnesty. Convictions run deep in this capital when it comes to immigration. Let us have a serious, civil, and conclusive debate so that you can pass and I can sign comprehensive immigration reform into law. Extending hope and opportunity depends on a stable supply of energy that keeps America's economy running and America's environment clean. For too long, our nation has been dependent on foreign oil. And this dependence leaves us more vulnerable to hostile regimes and to terrorists who could cause huge disruptions of oil shipments and raise the price of oil and do great harm to our economy. It's in our vital interest to diversify America's energy supply. The way forward is through technology. We must continue changing the way America generates electric power by even greater use of clean coal technology, solar and wind energy, and clean, safe nuclear power. We need to press on with battery research for plug-in and hybrid vehicles and expand the use of clean diesel vehicles and biodiesel fuel. We must continue investing in new methods of producing ethanol. Using everything from wood chips to grasses to agricultural wastes. We made a lot of progress thanks to good policies here in Washington and the strong response of the market. And now even more dramatic advances are within reach. Tonight I ask Congress to join me in pursuing a great goal. Let us build on the work we've done and reduce gasoline usage in the United States by 20% in the next 10 years. When we do that, we will have cut our total imports by the equivalent of 3/4 of all the oil we now import from the Middle East. To reach this goal, we must increase the supply of alternative fuels by setting a mandatory fuel standard to require 35 billion gallons of renewable and alternative fuels in 2017, and that is nearly 5 times the current target. At the same time, we need to reform and modernize fuel economy standards for cars the way we did for light trucks and conserve up to 8.5 billion more gallons of gasoline by 2017. Achieving these ambitious goals will dramatically reduce our dependence on foreign oil, but it's not going to eliminate it. And so as we continue to diversify our fuel supply, we must step up domestic oil production in environmentally sensitive ways. And to further protect America against severe disruptions to our oil supply, I ask Congress to double the current capacity of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. America is on the verge of technological breakthroughs that will enable us to live our lives less dependent on oil. And these technologies will help us be better stewards of the environment. And they will help us to confront the serious challenge of global climate change. The future of hope and opportunity requires a fair, impartial system of justice. The lives of our citizens across our nation are affected by the outcome of cases pending in our federal courts. We have a shared obligation to ensure that the federal courts have enough judges to hear those cases and deliver timely rulings. As President, I have a duty to nominate qualified men and women to vacancies on the federal bench, and the United States Senate has a duty as well to give those nominees a fair hearing and a prompt up or down vote on the Senate floor. For all of us in this room, there's no higher responsibility than to protect the people of this country from danger. 5 years have come and gone since we saw the scenes and felt the sorrow that the terrorists can cause. We've had time to take stock of our situation. We've added many critical protections to guard the homeland. We know with certainty that the horrors of that September morning were just a glimpse of what the terrorists intend for us. unless we stop them. With the distance of time, we find ourselves debating the causes of conflict and the course we have followed. Such debates are essential when a great democracy faces great questions. Yet one question has surely been settled, that to win the war on terror, we must take the fight to the enemy. From the start, America and our allies have protected our people by staying on the offense. The enemy knows that the days of comfortable sanctuary, easy movement, steady financing, and free-flowing communications are long over. For the terrorist, life since 9/11 has never been the same. Our success in this war is often measured by the things that did not happen. We cannot know the full extent of the attacks that we and our allies have prevented. But here's some of what we do know. We stopped an al-Qaeda plot to fly a hijacked airplane into the tallest building on the West Coast. We broke up a Southeast Asian terrorist cell grooming operatives for attacks inside the United States. We uncovered an al-Qaeda cell developing anthrax to be used in attacks against America. And just last August, British authorities uncovered a plot to blow up passenger planes bound for America over the Atlantic Ocean. For each life saved, we owe a debt of gratitude to the brave public servants who devote their lives to finding the terrorists and stopping them. Every success against the terrorists is a reminder of the shoreless ambitions of this enemy. The evil that inspired and rejoiced in 9/11 is still at work in the world. And so long as that's the case, America is still a nation at war. In the mind of the terrorists, this war began well before September the 11th and will not end until their radical vision is fulfilled. And these past 5 years have given us a much clearer view of the nature of this enemy. Al-Qaeda and its followers are Sunni extremists, possessed by hatred and commanded by a harsh and narrow ideology. Take almost any principle of civilization, and their goal is the opposite. They preach with threats, instruct with bullets and bombs, and promise paradise for the murder of the innocent. Our enemies are quite explicit about their intentions. They want to overthrow moderate governments and establish safe havens from which to plan and carry out new attacks on our country. By killing and terrorizing Americans, they want to force our country to retreat from the world and abandon the cause of liberty. They would then be free to impose their will and spread their totalitarian ideology. Listen to this warning from the late terrorist Zarqawi. We will sacrifice our blood and bodies to put an end to your dreams. And what is coming is even worse. Osama bin Laden declared death is better than living on this earth with the unbelievers among us. These men are not given idle words, and they are just one camp in the Islamist radical movement. In recent times, it has also become clear that we face an escalating danger from Shia extremists who are just as hostile to America and are also determined to dominate the Middle East. Many are known to take direction from the regime in Iran, which is funding and arming terrorists like Hezbollah, a group second only to al-Qaeda in the American lives it has taken. The Shia and Sunni extremists are different faces of the same totalitarian threat. Whatever slogans they chant, when they slaughter the innocent, they have the same wicked purposes. They want to kill Americans, kill democracy in the Middle East, and gain the weapons to kill on an even more horrific scale. In the 6 years since our nation was attacked, I wish I could report to you that the dangers have ended. They have not. And so it remains the policy of this government to use every lawful and proper tool of intelligence, diplomacy, law enforcement, and military action to do our duty to find these enemies and to protect the American people. This war is more than a clash of arms. It is a decisive ideological struggle, and the security of our nation is in the balance. To prevail, we must remove the conditions that inspire blind hatred and drove 19 men to get onto airplanes and to come and kill us. What every terrorist fears most is human freedom. Societies where men and women make their own choices, answer to their own conscience, and live by their hopes instead of their resentments. Free people are not drawn to violent and malignant ideologies, and most will choose a better way when they're given a chance. So we advance our own security interests by helping moderates and reformers and brave voices for democracy. The great question of our day is whether America will help men and women in the Middle East to build free societies and share in the rights of all humanity. And I say, for the sake of our own security, we must. In the last 2 years, we've seen the desire for liberty in the broader Middle East. And we have been sobered by the enemy's fierce reaction. 2005, the world watched as the citizens of Lebanon raised the banner of the Cedar Revolution. They drove out the Syrian occupiers and chose new leaders in free elections. In 2005, the people of Afghanistan defied the terrorists and elected a democratic legislature. And in 2005, the Iraqi people held 3 national elections, choosing a transitional government, adopting the most progressive democratic constitution in the Arab world, and then electing a government under that constitution. Despite endless threats from the killers in their midst, nearly 12 million Iraqi citizens came out to vote in a show of hope and solidarity that we should never forget. A thinking enemy watched all these scenes, adjusted their tactics, and in 2006, they struck back. In Lebanon, assassins took the life of Pierre Gemayel, a prominent participant in the Cedar Revolution. Hezbollah terrorists with support from Syria and Iran sowed conflict in the region and are seeking to undermine Lebanon's legitimately elected government. In Afghanistan, Taliban and al-Qaeda fighters tried to regain power by regrouping and engaging Afghan and NATO forces. In Iraq, al-Qaeda and other Sunni extremists blew up one of the most sacred places in Shia Islam, the Golden Mosque of Samarra. This atrocity, directed at a Muslim house of prayer, was designed to provoke retaliation from Iraqi Shia, and it succeeded. Radical Shia elements, some of whom received support from Iran, formed death squads. The result was a tragic escalation of sectarian rage and reprisal that continues to this day. This is not the fight we entered in Iraq, but it is the fight we are in. Every one of us wishes this war were over and won. Yet it would not be like us to leave our promises unkept, our friends abandoned, and our own security at risk. Ladies and gentlemen, on this day, at this hour, it is still within our power to shape the outcome of this battle. Let us find our resolve and turn events toward victory. We're carrying out a new strategy in Iraq, a plan that demands more from Iraq's elected government and gives our forces in Iraq the reinforcements they need to complete their mission. Our goal is a democratic Iraq that upholds the rule of law, respects the rights of its people, provides them security, and is an ally in the war on terror. In order to make progress toward this goal, the Iraqi government must stop the sectarian violence in its capital. But the Iraqis are not yet ready to do this on their own. So we're deploying reinforcements of more than 20,000 additional soldiers and Marines to Iraq. The vast majority will go to Baghdad, where they will help Iraqi forces to clear and secure neighborhoods and serve as advisors embedded in Iraqi army units. With Iraqis in the lead, our forces will help secure the city by chasing down the terrorists, insurgents, and the roaming death squads. And in Anbar province, where al-Qaeda terrorists have gathered and local forces have begun showing a willingness to fight them, we're sending an additional 4,000 United States Marines with orders to find the terrorists and clear them out. We didn't drive al-Qaeda out of their safe haven in Afghanistan, only to let them set up a new safe haven in a free Iraq. People of Iraq want to live in peace, and now it's time for their government to act. Iraq's leaders know that our commitment is not open-ended. They have promised to deploy more of their own troops to secure Baghdad, and they must do so. They pledge that they will confront violent radicals of any faction or political party, and they need to follow through and lift needless restrictions on Iraqi and coalition forces so these troops can achieve their mission of bringing security to all of the people of Baghdad. Iraq's leaders have committed themselves to a series of benchmarks to achieve reconciliation, to share oil revenues among all Iraq citizens, to put the wealth of Iraq into the rebuilding of Iraq, to allow more Iraqis to re-enter their nation's civic life, to hold local elections, and to take responsibility for security in every Iraqi province. But for all this to happen, Baghdad must be secure. And our plan will help the Iraqi government take back its capital and make good on its commitments. My fellow citizens, our military commanders and I have carefully weighed the options. We discussed every possible approach. In the end, I chose this course of action because it provides the best chance for success. Many in this chamber understand that America must not fail in Iraq, because you understand that the consequences of failure would be grievous and far-reaching. If American forces step back before Baghdad is secure, the Iraqi government would be overrun by extremists on all sides. We could expect an epic battle between Shia extremists backed by Iran and Sunni extremists aided by al-Qaeda and supporters of the old regime. A contagion of violence could spill out across the country, and in time, the entire region could be drawn into the conflict. For America, this is a nightmare scenario. For the enemy, this is the objective. Chaos is the greatest ally, their greatest ally in this struggle. And out of chaos in Iraq would emerge an emboldened enemy with new safe havens, new recruits, new resources, and an even greater determination to harm America. To allow this to happen would be to ignore the lessons of September the 11th and invite tragedy. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing is more important at this moment in our history than for America to succeed in the Middle East, to succeed in Iraq, and to spare the American people from this danger. This is where matters stand tonight, in the here and now. I've spoken with many of you in person. I respect you and the arguments you've made. We went into this largely united in our assumptions and in our convictions. And whatever you voted for, you did not vote for failure. Our country is pursuing a new strategy in Iraq, and I ask you to give it a chance to work. And I ask you to support our troops in the field and those on their way. The war on terror we fight today is a generational struggle that will continue long after you and I have turned our duties over to others. And that's why it's important to work together so our nation can see this great effort through. Both parties and both branches should work in close consultation. That's why I've proposed to establish a special advisory council on the war on terror, made up of leaders in Congress from both political parties. We will share ideas for how to position America to meet every challenge that confronts us. We'll show our enemies abroad that we're united in the goal of victory. And one of the first steps we can take together is to add to the ranks of our military so that the American armed forces are ready for all the challenges ahead. Tonight, I ask the Congress to authorize an increase in the size of our active Army and Marine Corps by 92,000 in the next 5 years. Second task we can take on together is to design and establish a volunteer civilian reserve corps. Such a corps would function much like our military reserve. It would ease the burden on the armed forces by allowing us to hire civilians with critical skills to serve on missions abroad when America needs them. It would give people across America who do not wear the uniform a chance to serve in the defining struggle of our time. Americans can have confidence in the outcome of this struggle because we're not in this struggle alone. We have a diplomatic strategy that is rallying the world to join in the fight against extremism. In Iraq, multinational forces are operating under a mandate from the United Nations. We're working with Jordan and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and the Gulf states to increase support for Iraq's government. The United Nations has imposed sanctions on Iran and made it clear that the world will not allow the regime in Tehran to acquire nuclear weapons. Other members of the quartet, the UN, the EU, and Russia were pursuing diplomacy to help bring peace to the Holy Land and pursuing the establishment of a democratic Palestinian state living side by side with Israel in peace and security. In Afghanistan, NATO has taken the lead in turning back the Taliban and al-Qaeda offensive, the first time the alliance has deployed forces outside the North Atlantic area. Together with our partners in China and Japan, Russia, and South Korea, we're pursuing intensive diplomacy to achieve a Korean peninsula free of nuclear weapons. We will continue to speak out for the cause of freedom in places like Cuba, Belarus, and Burma, and continue to awaken the conscience of the world to save the people of Darfur. American foreign policy is more than a matter of war and diplomacy. Our work in the world is also based on a timeless truth: to whom much is given, much is required. We hear the call to take on the challenges of hunger and poverty and disease, and that is precisely what America is doing. We must continue to fight HIV/AIDS, especially on the continent of Africa. Because you funded the emergency plan for AIDS relief, the number of people receiving life-saving drugs has grown from 50,000 to more than 800,000 in 3 short years. I ask you to continue funding our efforts to fight HIV/AIDS. And I ask you to provide $1.2 billion over 5 years so we can combat malaria in 15 African countries. I ask that you fund the Millennium Challenge account so that American aid reaches the people who need it in nations where democracy is on the rise and corruption is in retreat. And let us continue to support the expanded trade and debt relief that are the best hope for lifting lives and eliminating poverty. When America serves others in this way, we show the strength and generosity of our country. These deeds reflect the character of our people. The greatest strength we have is the heroic kindness and courage and self-sacrifice of the American people. You see this spirit often if you know where to look. And tonight, we need only look above to the gallery. Dikembe Mutombo grew up in Africa amid great poverty and disease. He came to Georgetown University on a scholarship to study medicine. Coach John Thompson took a look at Dikembe and had a different idea. Dikembe became a star in the NBA and a citizen of the United States. But he never forgot the land of his birth or the duty to share his blessings with others. He built a brand new hospital in his old hometown. A friend has said of this good-hearted man, Mutombo believes that God has given him this opportunity to do great things. And we're proud to call this son of the Congo a citizen of the United States of America. After her daughter was born, Julie Eigner Clark searched for ways to share her love of music and art with her child. So she borrowed some equipment and began filming children's videos in her basement. The Baby Einstein Company was born, and in just 5 years, her business grew to more than $20 million in sales. November 2001, Julie sold Baby Einstein to Walt Disney Company, and with her help, Baby Einstein has grown into a $200 million business. Julie represents the great enterprising spirit of America, and she's using her success to help others, producing child safety videos with John Walsh of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Julie says of her new project, "I believe it is the most important thing I have ever done. I believe that children have the right to live in a world that is safe." And so tonight, we are pleased to welcome this talented business entrepreneur and generous social entrepreneur, Julie Eigner Clark. Three weeks ago, Wesley Autry was waiting at a Harlem subway station with his 2 little girls when he saw a man fall into the path of a train. With seconds to act, Wesley jumped onto the tracks, pulled the man into the space between the rails, and held him as the train passed right above their heads. He insists he's not a hero. He says, "We got guys and girls overseas dying for us to have our freedoms. We have got to show each other some love. There is something wonderful about a country that produces a brave and humble man like Wesley Autry." Tommy Riemann was a teenager pumping gas in Independence, Kentucky when he enlisted in the United States Army. In December 2003, he was on a reconnaissance mission in Iraq when his team came under heavy enemy fire. From his Humvee, Sergeant Riemann returned fire. He used his body as a shield to protect his gunner. He was shot in the chest and arm and received shrapnel wounds to his legs, yet he refused medical attention and stayed in the fight. He helped to repel a second attack, firing grenades at the enemy's position. For his exceptional courage, Sergeant Riemann was awarded the Silver Star. And like so many other Americans who have volunteered to defend us, he has earned the respect and the gratitude of our entire country. In such courage and compassion, ladies and gentlemen, we see the spirit and character of America. And these qualities are not in short supply. This is a decent and honorable country, and resilient too. We've been through a lot together. We've met challenges and faced dangers, and we know that more lie ahead. Yet we can go forward with confidence, because the state of our union is strong. Our cause in the world is right. And tonight, that cause goes on. God bless.
President George W. Bush completing his 6th State of the Union address in a very different climate than the one in which he delivered his first less than 5 months after 9/11. His job approval rating back then, an incredible 82%. Now those digits are reversed. His approval rating down to just 28%, an all-time low. The president outlined his domestic initiatives for his last 2 years of his presidency, including comprehensive immigration reform, increasing the number of insured Americans through tax deductions for health insurance, reauthorizing the No Child Left Behind Act, decreasing American dependence on oil through a number of measures involving decreasing gas consumption and developing alternative fuel sources. And it wasn't until 20 minutes into his speech he got to the war on terror, saying our success in this war is often measured by the things that did not happen. He also called it a decisive ideological struggle as a preamble for reasserting and defending his new policy in Iraq, a policy which adds an additional 21,500 troops, mostly to secure Baghdad. You know, Bob, as a president who opposed nation building when he campaigned in 2000, he has undergone a huge transformation in the last 6 years when it comes to the notion of spreading democracy throughout the world. And of course, in the foreign policy section of his address, this was a key component. But do you think he's changed any minds tonight vis-a-vis his direction in Iraq?
I would say among the people in the hall there, probably not, because the president is very alone on this. Even the Republicans are not happy about sending more troops to Iraq. Perhaps he convinced some people out in the country. I would say this, Katie, this was a much better speech and a much better argument for his position than he made when he made the speech announcing the troop increase 2 weeks ago. But frankly, it comes down to this. If the president is right on this, this is going to be seen as a great profile in courage. If he's wrong, it will be seen as something much different.
And when it comes to congressional support, he's pretty much given up on the notion of Congress supporting him. In our Washington Bureau tonight, by the way, we have 2 White House veterans. Nicole Wallace was until last year communications director for President Bush, and Joe Lockhart was press secretary for President Clinton. Nicole, let's be honest, the president is in a very tough political environment. You've been hearing that again and again. He's losing support from his own party. Do you think he did change any minds tonight, or do you think he's talking above the heads of Congress and really just to the American people?
Well, I think one of the most important things he did tonight, Katie, was what he addressed directly to the Speaker. I thought his rousing tribute to Speaker Pelosi was the very George W. Bush and what people like to see when they remember why they liked him back when he was far more popular. I think he also set a tone throughout the speech. He talked about Iraq in a very frank way, and I think he went a long way toward earning back some of the trust and credibility that they know they need to finish the job in Iraq and to start a conversation on health care, immigration, and some of the other domestic issues that he rolled out today.
Meanwhile, Joe, you lived through a presidential impeachment. That's about as tough as it gets. What do you think President Bush needs to do in order to make any of his policy ideas a reality, particularly his domestic policies?
Well, you know, I don't think that it was a bad speech, but I think it was a missed opportunity. An unpopular president this late in the presidency really needs events like this to change the political dynamic. And this speech was sober, subdued, and I think at times timid when it came to policy. So I think it was a real missed opportunity for him. He has not changed the dynamic at all here in Washington.
You say timid when it comes to policy. Can you elaborate?
Well, just look at global climate change. In the last few weeks, we've had the major oil company and electricity companies looking for government mandates on emissions. The president is still 5-10 years ago about setting goals, down the road. The policy debate has sort of passed him by, and the president didn't look like he was someone who was seizing control of the agenda. He looked like someone who was reacting to the agenda, and that's a bad place as you move into further lame duck status.
Nicole, I'm sure you have a different point of view in terms of how Congress will react. Is everyone trying to stake out their positions as we approach the presidential elections, you think?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of that, and I think it matters, over the next 2 years what the candidates for president think about all these ideas. But I think more important, if the Democrats respond the way Joe did, that is a much better sign than if they respond the way Harry Reid did. By just calling the ideas ridiculous, I think that the Democrats do themselves a lot of harm. I think the president made a genuine and earnest effort at putting solutions on the table, and I think if they come back with a different approach to lowering the cost of health care, to doing something about global warming, then I think we'll be in a better place. And I think the president will deserve some of the credit for getting that discussion started with a tone that I think was very inviting and welcoming and really designed to earn some of the trust and credibility of this new majority in Congress.
And Bob, with all this talk in Congress about a more bipartisan approach, won't Congress pay the price if they don't at least respond to the president's initiatives in some of these areas?
Well, the Congress will do what's in its interest, as the president will do what is in his interest. And when those interests coincide with the interests of the country,
then you have a trifecta, but that doesn't happen very often, does it?
That's always called a very good thing. I think he has a chance on immigration. I think they do have a chance, as I said at the top, to get something done on immigration. I don't think you're going to see this whole debate on Iraq move very much. I mean, tomorrow, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee will start considering resolutions that disagree with the president's idea of sending more troops to Iraq. And you're going to have a Republican, a very powerful Republican, John Warner, the former chairman of the Armed Services Committee, presenting one resolution. Joe Biden, a Democrat, presenting another. The Democrats think they'll get 12, perhaps 13 Republicans to go along with that resolution. People at the White House say the president has resigned himself, that's going to pass, and he knows that. But tonight he saw a chance to just ask people to give him and give his policy a chance to work. That's the most he said. So I don't think that part is going to change very much. You may see a little cooperation on some issues down the line, but not a lot, frankly.
So you have heard from the President of the United States as he leaves the chamber. Coming up next, the Democrats will give their response. We'll have that for you, and our State of the Union coverage continues right after this.
nation's capital, at our government's most powerful agency.
This is the biggest case we've ever run.
The most dangerous threat is one of our own. Inspired by the true story of the greatest security breach in U.S. history.
Why don't we just arrest him?
The director wants him caught in the act.
What if he's smarter than I am? He's smarter than all of us.
Breach. Rated PG-13. In theaters February 16th.
I've had several people come into the stores that I've gone over the Medicare plans with, and I always try to tell the senior citizens to get their families involved. And I had one lady that kind of tears welled up in her eyes a little bit, and I realized I'd said something wrong, and actually it was that she didn't have any family members to talk to. So I scheduled some extra time with her and went over it on a one-to-one basis and tried to help her make a choice. Now I'm her son, I guess. My name is Rodney Wilson, and I'm a CBS pharmacist.
Cholesterol. It can come from bow tie pasta, but also from your grandfather Bo. From that pie, creamy banana. And your mom, Juliana. A healthy diet is important. When that's not enough, adding Vytorin can help. Cholesterol comes from two sources, food and family. Vytorin treats two sources. Only Vytorin helps block the absorption of cholesterol from food and reduces the cholesterol your body makes naturally. Vytorin was also proven in clinical studies to lower bad cholesterol more than Lipitor alone, more than Crestor alone. Vytorin is not for everyone, including people with liver problems, women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant. Tell your doctor right away about unexplained muscle pain or weakness, which may be a sign of a rare but serious side effect. Certain medicines or foods may increase your risk of getting this serious side effect. Simple blood tests are needed to check for liver problems. So eat right, stay active, but if that's not enough, ask your doctor about adding Vytorin, two sources of cholesterol. Treat them both with Vytorin.
Shirley gets money off her bill every time she visits her doctor. How you can too in our series Prescription for Saving. Tomorrow on the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Chris Klein and Gretchen Mol in Hallmark Hall of Fame's The Valley of Light, CBS Sunday.
It's time for Williamson's biggest sales event of the year and the best time to start the year in style. Lease a brand new 07 CTS, only $259 per month, or new 07 Hummer H3, only $289 per month. Williamson Cadillac Hummer, where the Palmetto meets US 1.
When teens are hungry, it seems like there are two of them. New Totino's Mega Pizza Rolls. Twice the delicious filling for twice the appetite. Mega Pizza Rolls, new from Totino's.
It seems like interest rates keep climbing and climbing, which makes it tough to buy the furniture you want, especially if you want to finance. But not at Rooms to Go. Our finance offer is completely interest-free. That's no interest until January 2011, 4 years from now. There's no money down. Just make equal monthly payments. No interest adds up. There's no interest, period. So forget about climbing interest rates. At Rooms to Go, free means free interest until January 2011.
It's time for Williamson's biggest sales event of the year and the best time to start the year in style. Lease an all-new 07 Escalade, only $599 per month. Or new 07 Hummer H2, just $549 per month. Williamson Cadillac Hummer, where the Palmetto meets US 1.
Big changes on the way. It looks wet then cool. Your forecast at 11.
CBS News coverage of the State of the Union address continues with the Democratic response. From Washington, here again is Katie Couric.
It is time now for the Democrats to respond to the President's State of the Union address. They've chosen freshman Senator James Webb of Virginia to speak. Webb is a highly decorated Vietnam veteran whose father was an Air Force captain 50 years ago. He's a former Secretary of the Navy and has a son in the Marines serving in Iraq. Webb narrowly defeated incumbent Republican George Allen this past November, helping the Democrats take control of the Senate. James Webb will be speaking from the Mansfield Room on the Senate side of the U.S. Capitol.
Good evening. I'm Senator Jim Webb from Virginia, where this year we will celebrate the 400th anniversary of the settlement of Jamestown, an event that marked the first step in the long journey that has made us the greatest and most prosperous nation on earth. It wouldn't be possible in this short amount of time to actually rebut the President's message, nor would it be useful. Let me simply say that we in the Democratic Party hope that this administration is serious about improving education and health care for all Americans and addressing such domestic priorities as restoring the vitality of the great city of New Orleans. Further, this is the 7th time the President has mentioned energy independence in his State of the Union message, but for the first time, this exchange is taking place in a Congress led by the Democratic Party. We are looking for affirmative solutions that will strengthen our nation by freeing us from our dependence on foreign oil and spurring a wave of entrepreneurial growth in the form of alternate energy programs. We look forward to working with the President and his party to bring about these changes. There are two areas where our respective parties have largely stood in contradiction, and I want to take a few minutes to address them tonight. The first relates to how we see the health of our economy, how we measure it, and how we ensure that its benefits are properly shared among all Americans. The second regards our foreign policy, how we might bring the war in Iraq to a proper conclusion that will also allow us to continue to fight the war against international terrorism and to address other strategic concerns that our country faces around the world. When one looks at the health of our economy, it's almost as if we're living in two different countries. Some say that things have never been better. The stock market is at an all-time high, and so are corporate profits. But these benefits are not being fairly shared. When I graduated from college, the average corporate CEO made 20 times what the average worker did. Today, it's nearly 400 times. In other words, it takes the average worker more than a year to make the money that his or her boss makes in one day. Wages and salaries for our workers are at all-time lows as a percentage of national wealth, even though the productivity of American workers is the highest in the world. Medical costs have skyrocketed. College tuition rates are off the charts. Our manufacturing base is being dismantled and sent overseas. Good American jobs are being sent along with them. In short, the middle class of this country, our historic backbone, and our best hope for a strong society in the future is losing its place at the table. Our workers know this through painful experience. Our white-collar professionals are beginning to understand it as their jobs start disappearing also. And they expect, rightly, that in this age of globalization, their government has a duty to insist that their concerns be dealt with fairly in the international marketplace. In the early days of our republic, President Andrew Jackson established an important principle of American-style democracy, that we should measure the health of our society not at its apex, but at its base, not with the numbers that come out of Wall Street, but with the living conditions that exist on Main Street. We must recapture that spirit today. Under the leadership of the new Democratic Congress, we're on our way to doing so. The House just passed a minimum wage increase, the first in 10 years, and the Senate will soon follow. We've introduced a broad legislative package designed to regain the trust of the American people. We've established a tone of cooperation and consensus that extends beyond party lines. We're working to get the right things done for the right people and for the right reasons. With respect to foreign policy, this country has patiently endured a mismanaged war for nearly 4 years. Many, including myself, warned even before the war began that it was unnecessary, that it would take our energy and attention away from the larger war against terrorism, and that invading and occupying Iraq would leave us strategically vulnerable in the most violent and turbulent corner of the world. I want to share with all of you a picture that I have carried with me for more than 50 years. This is my father when he was a young Air Force captain flying cargo planes during the Berlin airlift. He sent us the picture from Germany as we waited for him back here at home. When I was a small boy, I used to take the picture to bed with me every night because for more than 3 years my father was deployed, unable to live with us full-time, serving overseas or in bases where there was no family housing. I still keep it to remind me of the sacrifices that my mother and others had to make over and over again as my father gladly served our country. I was proud to follow in his footsteps, serving as a Marine in Vietnam. My brother did as well, serving as a Marine helicopter pilot. My son has joined the tradition, now serving as an infantry Marine in Iraq. Like so many other Americans today and throughout our history, we served and have served not for political reasons, but because we love our country. On the political issues, those matters of war and peace and in some cases life and death, we trusted the judgment of our national leaders. We hoped that they would be right, that they would measure with accuracy the value of our lives against the enormity of the national interest that might call upon us to go into harm's way. We owed them our loyalty as Americans, and we gave it. But they owed us sound judgment, clear thinking, concern for our welfare, a guarantee that the threat to our country was equal to the price we might be called upon to pay in defending it. The President took us into this war recklessly. He disregarded warnings from the National Security Advisor during the first Gulf War, the Chief of Staff of the Army, 2 former commanding generals of Central Command whose jurisdiction includes Iraq, the Director of Operations on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and many, many others with great integrity and long experience in national security affairs. We are now, as a nation, held hostage to the predictable and predicted disarray that has followed. The war's costs to our nation have been staggering financially, the damage to our reputation around the world, the lost opportunities to defeat the forces of international terrorism, and especially the precious blood of our citizens who stepped forward to serve. The majority of the nation no longer supports this war, the way this war is being fought, nor does the majority of our military, nor does the majority of Congress. We need a new direction. Not one step back from the war against international terrorism, not a precipitous withdrawal that ignores the possibility of further chaos, but an immediate shift towards strong, regionally based diplomacy, a policy that takes our soldiers off the streets of Iraq's cities, and a formula that will in short order allow our combat forces to leave Iraq. On both of these vital issues, our economy and our national security, it falls upon those of us in elected office to take action. Regarding the economic imbalance in our country, I'm reminded of the situation President Theodore Roosevelt faced in the early days of the 20th century. America was then, as now, drifting apart along class lines. The so-called robber barons were unapologetically raking in a huge percentage of the national wealth. The dispossessed workers at the bottom were threatening revolt. Roosevelt spoke strongly against these divisions. He told his fellow Republicans that they must set themselves, quote, as resolutely against improper corporate influence on the one hand as against demagogy and mob rule on the other. And he did something about it. As I look at Iraq, I recall the words of former General and soon-to-be President Dwight Eisenhower during the dark days of the Korean War, which had fallen to a bloody stalemate. When comes the end? Asked the general who had commanded our forces in Europe during World War II. And as soon as he became president, he brought the Korean War to an end. These presidents took the right kind of action for the benefit of the American people and for the health of our relations around the world. Tonight, we're calling on this president to take similar action in both areas. If he does, we will join him. If he does not, we will be showing him the way. Thank you for listening, and God bless America.
Giving the Democratic response, the junior senator from the state of Virginia, Jim Webb, a speech heavy on economic populism, casting doubt on the president's early assertion that a future of hope and opportunity begins with a growing economy, and that is what we have. Instead, saying the middle class of this country, our historic backbone and our best hope for a strong society in the future, is losing its place at the table. Meanwhile, he hammered the president on Iraq, saying that the president took us into this war recklessly, ignored the advice of top military leaders, and we are now, as a nation, held hostage to the predictable and predicted disarray that has followed. Bob Schieffer, the Democrats picked Jim Webb for, I think, very obvious reasons. His military credentials are above reproach.
Absolutely, and he has a son in Iraq, and they did not want the president to to draw attention away from the war. They want to keep the focus on this war because they believe it is George Bush's war. And as you say, Katie, he really ripped him tonight, saying he led us into this war recklessly. That's pretty tough talk.
Does not portend good things for the variety of resolutions that are being considered on Capitol Hill, Bob. And some of the best political writers in the business, meanwhile, have gotten together to form something called Politico.com. CBS News is partnering with them to bring you in-depth coverage of Campaign 08. Jim Vandehei, executive editor of Politico.com, is in our Washington bureau tonight. Jim, the 2008 presidential campaign year is already casting its shadow. There were something like at least 9 presidential hopefuls from both parties in that House chamber tonight. What are their political calculations over the next 2 years, and how willing will they be to help the president succeed? Something tells me not very.
Not on the Democratic side. You have the Democratic primary essentially playing out on that Senate floor, and if you're a Democrat, the best place to be is on the opposite side of President Bush. He's at 28% nationally, much lower with Democrats, so they want to stake out a position that differentiates themselves with Bush, and they're going to do that because, remember, it's a primary that comes first, not the general election. They've got to win those loyalists. They've got to lock them up. So if you're Hillary Rodham Clinton, you're not helping Bush. You're going to probably hurt him.
So they're staking out their positions right now, but it's so early in the game, isn't it?
It is, but you're talking about a campaign that's starting probably 6 months earlier than usual. And when you had Hillary Rodham Clinton actually making her announcement almost timed to the State of the Union address because she wanted to contrast her campaign with the president. And that's what you're going to see a lot of campaigns do. And on the Republican side, it's a very difficult calculation. You have Senator McCain, who really has aligned himself with President Bush, which puts himself in a really difficult position.
All right, Jim Vandehei of Politico.com. Jim, thanks so much for talking with us tonight.
Katie.
Nice to work with you. By the way, there will be much more about the President's State of the Union address on your local news on this CBS station, as well as on our website at cbsnews.com tomorrow morning on The Early Show and on the CBS Evening News. With the special thanks to the Jones Day Law Firm for this view of the Capitol, and a special thanks to my colleague Bob Schieffer. I'm Katie Couric. Good night, everyone, from Washington.
The Ultimate Competition Survivor Fiji premieres CBS Thursday, February 8th.
It's time for Williamson's biggest sales event of the year, and the best time to start the year in style. Lease a brand new 07 CTS, only $259 per month, or new 07 Hummer H3, only $289 per month. Williamson Cadillac Hummer, where the Palmetto meets US 1.
New at 11 on CBS 4 News.
Unbelievable but true. A South Florida woman finds a mummified baby in her parents' storage shed. Tonight, the nearby clues that reveal how long it may have been there.
Big changes on the way. It looks wet, then cool, then wet again. I'll have your forecast.
Plus, a billboard bearing a naked note for local drivers, and you won't believe who's behind it. We'll expose who's pushing the sexy message. All new at 11 on CBS 4 News.
Football fans, step off the sidelines and get into the game. The NFL experience built by the Home Depot is coming to Dolphin Stadium. Take part in Pro Football's interactive theme park with over 50 games, exhibits, and attractions included in one price of admission. The whole family can throw a pass, announce plays, field a punt, or dive into the end zone to score the winning touchdown. Tickets are $15 for adults, $10 for kids under 12. Call 866-TICKS-4-NFL or log on to superbowl.com to get your tickets. This is your Super Bowl.
Get ready for a fabulous February on CBS 4.
Hey, that's the job.
With all new episodes of your favorite shows. Oprah, CSI Miami, 2.5 Men.
High five.
No, too slow.
The most anticipated television events. Super Bowl 41 in South Florida. The Grammy Awards. Plus news coverage you can count on for all the big stories.
It all happens this February, right here on CBS 4.
It's time for Williamson's biggest sales event of the year, and the best time to start the year in style. Lease an all-new 07 Escalade, only $599 per month, or new 07 Hummer H2, just $549 per month. Williamson Cadillac Hummer, where the Palmetto meets US 1.
He cashed in. How you can score a cash bonanza at 11.
For nominee Forrest Whitaker, Ricky Gervais, and a State of the Union Top 10 tonight.